We are coming to you live from Magic Live in the Magic Camp dorm room, which is our hotel. I'm here with David Stryker.
Hey, man.
David Stryker, a boy magician. He's the same age as me, but he looks like he's taken really good care of himself.
I am the ageless wonder.
Or just not worked as hard. I'm not sure. Probably.
Probably a little bit of both, actually.
No. David and I grew up at the Magic Castle in the junior group together. And now we are at the adult summer camp of magic.
We've really made it. We're in a scuzzy hotel room.
Yes.
Surrounded by magicians.
This is a Vegas hotel room. When you don't expect to stay in a nice room.
Oh, it's perfect. This is great.
You go to your room at night and you don't think about what happened in that room when you weren't in there. As we're sitting on the bedspreads.
Yeah. Well, that little thing I rolled up. There's like a little footer on the bed that I rolled up because
they don't wash those.
They don't. My mom taught me that. I roll it right up, put it away,
and get it out of there.
It's gross.
David, how do you feel being at?
This is great. This is my my second magic convention.
Yep.
And I went to the first one with you, about a year and a half ago, and I didn't know what to expect. This one is really, really cool, though. I avoided them for a long time just because I didn't know how things worked and who I would run into.
Oh yeah.
This is great. It's fantastic. People just hanging out, doing tricks until 3, 4 in the morning, practicing, being creative, trying new things. It's great. It's fantastic.
It is we said it already, but it is like summer camp. It is.
Yeah, it is.
Just a fun time. You learn things. You make new friends.
You feel like you're away from your parents, even though,
you spend money on things you probably shouldn't.
Right. Right, and it's all justified. So.
Oh, yeah. Well, I need this because I might do a bar mitzvah. Yeah. So this bar mitzvah themed magic trick is...
I don't want to disappoint Josh, It's
Josh's bar mitzvah. Yeah. Shout out to the new Bad Boys of Magic.
That's right.
Well, we are rooming together, and we have been having so much fun, and we've been eating dinner at like 3 o'clock in the morning. And
dinner at 3, coffee at noon.
Yes.
It's great.
We're seeing some of the really coolest magic stuff around. We're buying new toys and playing with them.
We have seen the biggest names in magic. We've seen tricks that we haven't seen before.
We have.
Yeah, and it's quite humbling. Don't you think? Do you think this is humbling?
I think it's humbling, and I think at the same time it's a good reminder of how small and closely knit this community is.
It is. And with that in mind, this is somebody else's thought, but it really resonated with me when he said it. And in magic is one of those unique art forms where it's not that hard to really get close to the best in the world.
Right.
You can walk through a hotel, and you saw David Copperfield today walking through.
Yeah.
I don't think he's here this year, but David Blaine has been here.
Yep. Lance Burton, Matt
was
King,
here.
all here.
And you can approach them all and say hi, say thanks.
Absolutely.
Have dinner with them on occasion.
Yeah.
That happens. It's great.
It's rad. Like if you're a singer, you can't just be like, I'm going to go call up Adele and we're going to hang out. But like legit, you can just walk up to these guys and they're just, what's great is I feel like most of the time they're just as excited to talk to you about magic as you are to talk to them.
Yeah, very often that's the case. Yeah.
It's a rad thing. Magic is awesome. I feel like a creative surge. Like we were talking yesterday about ideas and
sure.
I've been in a little bit of not a creative funk, but I just haven't been working on new things. And now I'm just like, I want to do this and this and this.
Yeah. Yeah. I think whenever, I don't know if you feel the same way, but when I see good magic and it speaks to me like the way that it did when I was a kid, I'm reminded of the impact it can have on people. And this whole week has been doing that. It's awesome. Just like, it's kind of a reminder of why we even do this. Why do grown men spend hours at a time in front of a mirror, with scissors and tape and all these little things, just, spending hundreds of hours for a moment that's going to last, 2 minutes in a performance.
Right.
When you really stop and think about it, it's nuts. And this is why we do it, Taylor.
This is why we do it.
Yep.
We were walking around. They have the biggest magic dealer room of anywhere. So it's like every great magic shop brings their best stuff and sets up in this big ballroom.
Right.
And it reminded me of being a kid and going to Hollywood Magic and not wanting to leave. And being like, well, wait, I haven't seen that. What is that? Or what if there's something in here that I've missed? Or who's going to walk in next and demo something that I'm going to wish I was here for?
Right.
And we've been doing that. We've literally walked around that room 20 times.
At least. We skipped some of the quote unquote sessions just so we could hang around and daydream about buying stuff we can't afford.
Right.
It's crazy.
It's so fun. I'm so glad we came. I'm so glad we're rooming.
Yeah, man, this is great.
You are a wonderful dude.
Likewise, you snore a little bit too loud, but it's okay. You get great foot rubs, so that's fine.
That's right. Yeah. It's funny because you were concerned I was going to hear you snoring, and I'm like, that's not a concern.
Yeah. I think when you conk out 2 sheets to the wind at 4 a.m., you don't hear anything. So,
yeah, you just knock out.
You're good.
We're good. Well, this episode of the podcast is interesting because normally it's one guest every week and we talk about their journey. Mm-hmm. But in honor of being here with some of the greatest magicians in the world, what I did today, David, is I just walked around with a microphone and I just asked just great guys like the amazing Johnathan and Johnny Thompson and all these cats just to tell their horror story of a gig that went wrong.
Oh, you did?
I did. And they're going to hear it right now.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah. Do you have any horrible stories? I know it's tough because you don't want to,
Yeah,
there's that moment where you go like, maybe mine's not horrible enough to tell, but
and honestly, probably nothing that'll compare to what you're about to play. I think, you know what? I'll say this: I don't have a horror story, but in a weird way, I admire guys who do.
Yeah,
and I think the reason is horror stories come from two things. They come from taking risks a lot of the time.
Yeah, and
they come from doing a lot of gigs. So if you have if you have things that didn't go well, it means you're doing it a lot.
Oh, that's good.
No, I think it's
encouraging.
Yeah,
it's a good way to look at it.
Yeah, I've had a lot of performances where tricks didn't work. I like to think that I got myself out of it without embarrassing myself. Right. Client was happy or whatever. But yeah, nothing so terrible that yeah. You guys are in for a treat, I'm sure. There's some good stuff coming.
It's gonna be fun. So guys, we got a little journey here. We are going to hear some breaking moments, some magic horror stories from some of the busiest workers in the business, and it's going to happen right now.
Very cool.
And while you guys listen to this, David and I are going to go walk around the dealer room again.
and I think grab our first drink of the night here.
We'll do it.
7 p.m. That's good. I think we're good.
Oh, yeah. We're behind schedule. Cheers, everybody. Enjoy the show.
No, I'm not a writer.
Okay.
Something is about to break.
Hi, I'm Johnny Thompson, and this is my story. The worst thing that ever happened to me, which is, I guess I can refer to as the dub worker's worst nightmare, happened to me on a cruise ship. When I got on the cruise ship, I saw an old friend I hadn't seen in 20 years. He was a harmonica player, probably the best classical harmonica player in the world at the time. And he was suffering from cancer, and he survived 7 years by staying on a macrobiotic diet. So he was on the night before me, and now I'm getting ready, and my wife had to go to the stage left because there was no crossover backstage, so she had to get there before the audience came in this little area that had a door that entered on and off the stage from stage left. So I had to load the birds myself. Well, I get dressed and I'm working. I put all the birds in the top drawer of a dresser so I didn't have to bend down to pick them up and so forth, put the harnesses there. And I get a call from my friend Stan Fisher, and we start talking about the old days and that. So he said, "Aren't you due to go on?" I said, "Yeah." Well, I had planned to enter through the audience and walk up onto the stage, cane and hat. And when I get the birds on, I don't feel them after a while, because if you're aware of them, you know, it's a problem. So I go up, do the hat and cane, put the hat on the cane, produce the first silk out of the air. There's no birds. I run my hands back across my body to make sure, and panic hits. I start doing some knot tricks as I work my way to stage left, and I say to Pam, Pam, the way we talk on stage with a frozen ventriloquist thing. Pam, I have no words. Bring me anything that doesn't take a bird. And she said, you have no expletive birds? I said, yes. And so a magician afterwards said to me, well, what did you do? I said 35 minutes like I was supposed to.
Hi, I'm Charles Bach. I'm from Las Vegas. I'm an illusionist, and I had a crazy time doing an illusion once where I left my microphone. The tech left the microphone on, and I'm in the sub trunk, and I was not in the bag yet. She opens the trunk to let me out, and I said, "Oh, yes." And she quietly whispered to me, "Your microphone is on." And my next line was, "Did I cuss?"
What just happened? What did I do? That's amazing. Was this the end of the show, or was this kind of?
This was the closer.
I want to leave you guys with something very special.
It was unforgettable for all of us.
That's amazing.
Oh, hi, I'm Dale Solwack. I'm here at Magic Live. I have more stories than I can count of when things went wrong. One, for example, I've worked at the Ice House in Pasadena ever since 1970. One of my very early performances there, I didn't tell the MC beforehand what I was going to do. The Ice House is one of the country's oldest comedy stores. So he got up on stage, Fraser Smith was his name. He said, now, ladies and gentlemen, one of the funniest men in magic. It was the most awkward and uncomfortable 10 minutes I've ever had in my life because you can sense the audience waiting for the laughs.
Waiting for the laughs. What a setup.
At one point in my show, I throw a coin in the air, supposedly it vanishes and drops in the bucket. And when I did that, I heard someone in the front row say, that was funny.
Oh, that's great.
Second one, I worked at Universal City outside. This was when we were doing reel-to-reel tapes for our music. Didn't occur to me that tape stretched in the sunlight. So my act was 12 minutes. Normally, the music was so slow, it was an 18-minute act. I was doing moves I hadn't done in years just to fill the time. After the show, an audience member caught me and said, I love your work. I just think you could pick up the tempo a little bit.
I know you've told too. I got to ask you, because you were telling me about a time with some coins, something happened. Would you mind sharing that?
Absolutely. This is the good lesson in this is to have a check sheet and make sure you've got all your props. I had my act all set. I came out. I did my cane work. I went to do coins and realized I had forgotten to load the coins in the table or in the bucket. So I pantomimed the whole act as if I had coins. There was no sound, nothing. The end, 2 big handfuls, a grand finish. I got my applause and I moved on.
That's fantastic.
Hi, this is John Cardo. This is my horror story. This is a couple years ago. I was in the junior program at the Magic Castle. This was our annual Future Stars of Magic Week, where the members of the junior program perform nightly shows in all the showrooms. And I was part of the Palace show, and I was doing one 7-minute mentalism piece. The idea was I passed out a wallet. It was kind of a thing I built with sort of Bob Dorian. I had a method, and he kind of helped me come up with the routine. And it was kind of risky. There's some I won't go into it, but there's some elements in it that could go wrong. The idea is I'd predict what people pulled out of a wallet. I could guess what they pulled out of my wallet, and then I had a prediction at the very end. The section I was in, there were 3 of us that represented 3 different styles of magic that would go back to back to back. So the curtain would close on one, and there wouldn't be an introduction. I would just walk out. Then I was second, and then I would leave, and then a third person would come on. Yeah. At the end, the 3 of us would all come back on and bow together. So I'm doing this. The house lights are up. And in the last moment, right as I was about to reveal the prediction, I realized that it was going to be wrong. I knew the prediction was there are 4 items in a wallet. People pick 3 of them, and the prediction is what they never ever pick. Yeah. And as I gave the envelope to someone, they opened it. As they pulled it out, I realized what happened, and I went, it's wrong. And so then I just went, oh wait, and everyone looked at me, and then I went, in my head I went, I don't have an out. I don't have anything to do. What am I saying wait for? It was just an instinct thing. So I went, go ahead. And I have about half a second to come up with anything I can to rationalize why this will be wrong. I can't do it. Now the worst part is the house lights are wide open. So the moment that the prediction is wrong, you see 130 people go, oh, and then there's one row in the back. There's an aisle down the center. There's one row in the back where there's one seat in the middle that connects that whole aisle. Yeah. There's one seat. And I see that woman look me right in the eyes and just go, aww. So I feel like total shit, and you had to come back for a exactly. The worst part is I'm waiting for 6 minutes, knowing that I have to go back on stage. This is the only thing I did. I didn't do another thing to save my ass. This was it. I had to leave. and then I had to come back on, and they had it was a rough night.
This is Joshua J. My story of a big screw up is a really recent one, although I have many. We worked so hard on this moment in my show where smoke emanates from a book in a spectator's hand. It's a beautiful moment. It's about 5 seconds, and it's just a special effect that's really cool. It obviously depends on a secret gizmo in the book that goes off, and we just could not get this thing to work. We couldn't get it to work on time, and finally it started to get into its groove, and then one night the smoke came out in the most beautiful plume of smoke we'd ever seen, but that was because it had overheated and actually caught the book on fire. And so here's the spectator with a book that is mildly on fire in their hands, and stinky smoke is rising up from it. It's fine, it's not like an open flame, but I take the book, we set it down, we go on, and the book continues to smoke and be on fire well into the second trick, and I'm having to go, hey, don't worry about the book that's on fire, now we're doing a card trick. And that's my experience with a smoke device.
Hello, my name is Robert Ramirez, and a horror story that happened was I was performing at the Magic Castle. I was doing a multiplying bottles routine in the Peller Theater. We finished the routine. There's 10 bottles laid out everywhere. The lights go out. We walk off stage. The lights come on. There is a drunk woman who's got out of her seat, walked all the way up to the table, and is now picking up the bottles going, how did that happen? And we had to, escort her out and, put the bottles down, and it was terrifying.
Hi, my name is Lucas Tokar, and this is the time that twice my gypsy thread just didn't unravel on stage at the Magic Castle. So I was working the Future Stars week, I think it was just last week, and I think it was the first day on my first show. I come out and I'm doing Tony Clark's Gypsy Thread on a balloon. So I get to the point where it unravels. I get it, I shake it for it to unravel, and it comes maybe an inch up, and that's it. Just a knot, that's it. I look at her, and I look at the knot, and then I hand it to her and go, just imagine it unraveled, and I have her sit down, and I walk, and that's the finale. The next day, I'm like, it's not gonna happen today. I go on stage, my second show that night, it happens again. And so I do the same thing. I'm like, just imagine. And I send him off. Luckily, that was the last time that week, but twice in 1 week at the Magic Castle.
So I got to know, is there a moment every time you do that trick now that you go, hope this works?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I get so nervous just in that one moment. Everything else, it's fine. But the moment it unravels, I'm watching it so closely to make sure it works.
I love it because it either unravels or it unravels. Yeah, that's great.
So this is Scott Tokar. Taylor, have you ever been nervous before an audience?
Oh, yeah.
And what do you do? How do you imagine the audience?
Well, the old thing is you're supposed to imagine people either in their underwear or naked. I don't know why that helps, but...
So I was hired to be the lead entertainer for a nude cruise.
Oh, man.
So the first question is, where do you put the birds? No. I didn't have to be naked. No, that was the best part.
There's only one explanation.
I was the only person on this ship practically that's clothed. And as you're nervous, you look out at the audience and they are already naked. For real.
What I love is picturing the people after this cruise is over. The next group that comes on sits in those same seats, has no idea what just occurred.
Someday when my wife will let me, I will actually share the photographs that I have of volunteers on my stage completely naked.
That's fantastic.
So my name is Harris III, and 4 years ago at a 4th of July party, I broke out the torches to do a fire breathing and fire eating act. Something I'd done hundreds of times. I know I kind of got ridiculed by some of the sideshow community after this story went public, but they didn't really have a ton of the details about who I was trained by or what was going on. But long story short, got a little bit arrogant, did something stupid, a mistake that I was taught not to make and that I knew I shouldn't have done. but set my face on fire for about 8 seconds. Ended up with second-degree burns all over my face and mouth and chest, and ended up using my shirt. I took my shirt off and pulled it up over my face to put out the fire. But yeah, I ended up with a couple of weeks of no shows, and that was the time I set my face on fire. I don't spend a lot of time fire breathing or fire eating anymore.
Hello, I'm João Miranda, creator and performer of Magic. Some years ago, I was performing the classic smoke in glass. Yes, when you cover the glass with the silk, and then a few seconds later remove it and it's full of glass. So I placed the silk over the glass. It was like 1 minute sending magic to the glass, and 1 minute later I removed the silk and there was no smoke. And everyone was looking at me at what happened. This is one thing. Another time I was doing a levitation with a spectator, and it went up perfectly, but the spectator never went down. So I was with the table, rolling the table to the side with the spectator and me, and it was very magical. Then I say to the audience, now it's the perfect time to simply do a card trick.
Hey, I'm Nick Lacapo, and my nightmare story just happened to be my very first time up on stage. I was doing a show at the Improv in Orlando. It was a quick little tour of Tampa, Orlando, and Miami with I was just out of my league at this point. But hey, I said yes to the gig anyway. So my set was the floating cigarette, the linking finger rings, and the invisible deck. And the invisible deck I was using was with a gimmicked martini shaker that had a liquid load in it, and the invisible deck was in the shaker. That's important because that was on the stage before the set ever started. So the only thing I had actually ever really rehearsed a lot was the floating cigarette, and I was really confident about that, except when I went out on stage and the music hit, and I went to float the cigarette, and the thread was totally not there. Luckily for me, I had been studying cigarette manipulation at the time, so I was nervous as hell. My first time on stage, the thread wasn't there. The audience didn't know. So I did some sleight of hand with the cigarette and brought it to a successful conclusion. The audience loved it, but I was pissing my pants at this point because I had no idea what the hell I was doing. So I went to introduce myself, totally forgot all of that scripting that I had done because I was so nervous after what just happened to me. Dropped the whole introduction. People at this point are like, I think this guy's drunk. So then the next thing I had to do was go get my table that had the shaker on it for the next trick. But the thing was, the MC happened to set it up on the wrong side of the stage. So I'm like, I'm gonna have to move this table. In practice, I had never moved that table before, and sure enough, that martini shaker fell, hit the stage, the liquid load all over the people in the front row. My invisible deck that was in the shaker across the stage, clearly now not in invisible deck order, with liquid all over it. And great.
This was your very first gig.
Very first gig, right?
Why did you get back on stage?
So clearly everybody in the room knew I was drunk at this point. I wasn't. I picked up the invisible deck, put it back in the martini shaker, put the martini shaker back on top of the table, and was like, I don't think I can do that trick. But let's do the next one anyway. So I did the linking finger rings. It went okay. I dropped a ring, but that seems to be the least horrible thing that happened to me that night. Still feel bad about it, but that was one thing. I was just nervous. I remember during that side note, I went into the crowd to get the rings during that effect, and I could see all my friends that were there. They're all looking at me like deer in the headlights, like, oh my God, dude, are you okay? Anyway, so I got the rings. I went back on stage, did that trick, and whatever. It wasn't that good. Anyway, so I have to make a decision now. Do I even attempt the invisible deck routine?
Right.
And I'm like, what the hell else could go wrong? Why not? Right? So screw it. So I pick up the deck out of the shaker. I quickly check it. I'm like, oh, maybe I think it's okay. Yeah. So it's one of those where the audience is choosing the card. But so I'm shuffling it face up and face down. It's a old cool Steve Bedwell trick. Anyway, so I put the deck back into the shaker, and the cards somehow hit the edge of the shaker, get stripped out, and clearly do not go back in the right order in the shaker. But I'm already mid-routine, and I'm looking in the shaker like this, like, oh my God, that deck is not right anymore. I can't spread that and have it be normal now.
Yeah.
So the card is selected. It's the two of clubs. I'll never forget it. I'm just shaking the shaker. The idea is I'm shaking the shaker so the card turns face up and whatever. When I got to the reveal, I looked down into the shaker, and there was the two of clubs on the face of the deck, the one that the audience had named. And invisible deck, that's a bad thing typically. But in this case, I was like, oh my God, everything has gone wrong tonight. And then they named the one card that's on the bottom of the deck, even if I could spread this thing normally. But the card's on the bottom of the deck, maybe that's good enough. How you guys shuffled the one card that's on the bottom of the deck, I'll never know. Thank you. My name's Nick. Good night. Yeah. And then I walked off the stage, and but I didn't quit. I didn't quit. Taylor, that's the lesson. Don't quit.
I'm Charlie Fry, and nothing has ever gone wrong in my show. Ever. It didn't go wrong when we were in Medora, North Dakota. We were hired to do a show. And Medora is a beautiful little sleepy town with like a 3,000-seat amphitheater. And we didn't realize that it was all outdoors until we got there. And Sherry would exit from like a saloon 60 feet upstage, walk across a plank where the dirt was, and finally make it to the stage where I was. And the first night we were there, the wind was blowing so hard that it blew the prop table off. And so all the props just rolled right out into the front row, and people are out there huddled under blankets, and the wind is just whipping. You can see the flag up there. It's like a Western motif, and the flag is just belting. And so we get off stage after I've, finished the act somehow, and my hat, it was raining. My hat turned into just a felt limp rag on my head, and I told Sherry, don't come back, just don't come back. And so she stayed in the saloon. And I just tried to do the act without her, and do the ball routine with like 2 balls, and the club routine with 1 club, and the hat routine with a limp piece of felt. And, and of course the vest trick is out. You put that up, and that just blew over to, Wyoming somewhere. I've never found that vest. And so we go back in, and we go to our dressing room downstairs below the saloon and a dirt floor. And I'm already putting the props back in the case. I'm putting them away because I know we're fired. That's awful. This is terrible. And the producer comes down and goes, "That was great." What are you talking about? I said, "That is great. We'll put some weights on the prop table if you want." So they weighted it down with sandbags, and we finished the contract in the month there. And we survived, but I don't know. It was... Every day we would check the weather, and every day it was worse. So that's it.
That's amazing. What were you thinking when he was on stage and he told you not to come back?
I was going to kill him to book this job. Yes, I was going to kill him.
One of those moments where you go, what did we sign up for?
My name is Bob Carroll. This is my horror story. I do school shows, and I work for the fire department. And the fire department around the country. I'm doing one show in Ludlow, Massachusetts, and the fire department is actually with me at the time. I'm doing the show teaching in the cafeteria, teaching kids about what to do in case of a fire. While I'm doing the show, a fire starts out in the kitchen. In the kitchen. I'm halfway through the show, and the fire breaks out. Now, what do? You just say, that was a planned thing. You say, that was planned. The fire department set off that alarm, and let's see how quietly and patiently we can get out of the building. So we get the fire department, I got everybody out of the building safely. The fire department showed up, and the fire got put out. But the teachers come up to me afterwards, and they said, that was amazing. Yeah. We could smell the smoke. We knew it wasn't fake. But you got them all controlled to do exactly what we...
You just pretended like that was part of the show.
Yes, I just pretended that was part of the show. The fire department did it, and no problem. We're all safe. Let's get out of the building safely.
That's brilliant.
The only problem was when I went back, they all came back into the auditorium, and it was time to go. There was no more show left. And I said, and that's the end of the show. You did perfectly. The fire department wants to thank you, and away we went.
Hello, my name is Louis Carrion, and my worst story is I was doing an event, and then somebody got shot in front of me at that show.
No.
That's right. It was a house for gangsters. And then there was a drive-by. They opened the door, and boom, boom, got shot. Guy dead in front of me. That's my worst story.
Oh my God. That's insane.
Yeah.
What did you do?
I didn't know what I did, man. I was just frozen. And the lady, she's like, here's your pay. Like, this happens every day.
They just acted like that was normal.
Oh, here's your pay. Thank you so much for coming. That guy on the floor in front of me,
Oh my gosh. Well, thanks for sharing. I'm glad you're okay, buddy.
Yeah. Hey, so my name is Ben Benjamins. I'm a mentalist and a crazy performer out of Los Angeles, California, by way of Pasadena. And my funny story is when I first started in Magic, I was performing at the Magic Castle in the basement almost every night, and just to get the reps in because I had nowhere else to perform. And so I set up downstairs and I saw a bunch of stand-up comedians who, I'm not going to say their names, but they've had Comedy Central specials, and they are very prominent, and if I said their names, you'd recognize them. I proceeded to do my show, and these comedians went on to heckle me the entire show. And keep in mind, this is really my first time ever performing, and it was just so humiliating, the fact that they were not only making fun of me, but they were getting bigger laughs than I was. And at the end of the show, I wanted to almost take all my Magic stuff and throw it in the garbage.
What made you go back out and perform again?
I'm an idiot, really. I guess when you have a love for Magic and you have something to say, you just want to go and say it, and you kind of want to stick a big middle finger in the air to people that do that. And now I kind of don't, I care a lot less. I was so precious of my material and I was so green with it that now it's like I go out there and I do it, and if you laugh, I didn't understand at the time that when somebody else heckles you and the audience laughs, you still get the credit. And that's something I've learned.
That's beautiful, man. Thanks for sharing.
How's it going? It's Robert Hall. I'm magician over at the Loft in South Lake Tahoe. And I'm not going to tell you my stories, but 2 stories we had back to back with T2 when he was there. We had one show where we had a girl full-on seizure out in the middle of the show, had to empty the entire theater. Paramedics came in. It was crazy. But the funny part about it was literally the show right before that, we had like a 6-year-old kid projectile vomit 3 rows out, like covered like 8 people. It was like spaghetti. You saw it everywhere. It was hilarious.
My goodness. And it just, that was literally one show after another.
One show after another with him. I mean, I think he was a little paranoid to do that 3rd day in a row. He's just like, what's going to happen now?
So guys, my name is Riccardo Berdini. I live in Hollywood, and I was doing a private party, and I was performing for Evan Rachel Wood, the star of Westworld, and I was performing double cross. So I put the double cross on her hand with misdirection, and then she unexpectedly turned her hand upside down. I started to cover. I quickly cover her. I quickly covered the cross with my thumb, and I started to scream like an idiot, saying stuff without any sense in Italian. She thought I was a psychopath. She thought I was crazy, but I saved the trick because she didn't see it. So she thought I was an idiot. I was a psychopath, and it was. I mean, it was one of the worst things that happened in my life. But I saved the trick. That's important.
Hey everybody, Cosmo here. A little story from the streets. So one day I was working in New Orleans, and I was on the corner of St. Pete and Decatur Street. Real nice pitch there, shady, beautiful. Right down the street from that pitch is where they have the carts with the donkeys that haul the people around, right? Around, and so the people the couples get in there and they go through the French Quarter. It's nice. I got a nice little show going on, and all of a sudden I hear this screaming from this restaurant that's right next to where I was working. I look over there. The police show up with sirens blasting, run into the restaurant, and they got this big, bar that you crash down the doors on. Yeah. They start pounding on the door in this restaurant, breaking down the bathroom door. Right? I'm going, what the hell's going on? And my crowd's starting, I'm like 50, 60 people. I want to finish the show. I want the money, but they're starting to watch this because this might be a better show than mine, Sure enough, pound, 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 pound. Another siren comes down the road. While the cop's going down the road with the siren, this cop car, this lady and this guy in this cart pull out, and the donkey hears the siren and takes off running. Running down the road, full speed, this donkey pulling this cart. The right-hand side, the donkey missed the pole, but the cart caught the pole on the side of the street. Donkey goes flying, the cart stops instantly, the woman flies out of the cart and lands right in the middle of my audience, laying there bleeding. It was a good thing that those police were next door because they come run over to help the lady. There was nothing I could do, so I picked up my table. I moved it 33 feet down the street. pulled my audience over, and finished the show and passed my hat. You gotta persist, baby. Yeah, you gotta persist.
The biggest question was, what was the take? How was the hat that day?
Oh, it was great. I'm good. I've done this before.
This is the amazing Johnathan, and I've been asked to tell you about the worst gig I've ever had, and this no one will beat this one. No one will beat this. This is my high school talent show. Everybody in the audience, I know, all my school friends, my relatives, and my parents are all there. So there's no one there that's it's just the most important show I've ever done. I did 6 tricks. Every one of them went wrong. I killed a dove. Okay, let me run you through the order. Yeah. First, I come out I was dressed like an absolute dick. I had the Godspell makeup on. I had a heart on my forehead, rainbow suspenders. I looked like a douche. And so I come out, and my first thing was to throw my arms out. There's going to be an explosion, but there wasn't one. So I throw my arms out again, nothing. Like a third time, nothing. So all they see is some guy coming out throwing his arm. Looks like I'm trying to fly or something, like a bird. So I just decided, let's move on. Vanishing cane, boom, snags halfway down. So I have half a metal cane with a little bit of a silk coming out the end, and in the other hand I have a silk. So okay, it's time to move. Got to keep it moving. Gloves to dove. I totally missed the well where I'm supposed to throw my gloves into. That the trap snaps open, so you got half gloves and half a dove. And then the dove falls onto the floor, and I go to chase it, and it stops, and I run right over it. Yeah, this is my bird I've had for about 8 years. Right? And the guts come out of its mouth. It just was a mess. So now it's just time to move on to the bigger illusions. Do the sword box. The girl inside the sword box, I can hear her inside moving around. I hear her say, I got to get out. I got a leg cramp. And I'm like, stay in the box. We're almost done. Just stay in the box. And she couldn't stay in the box. She stood up. She knocked the top off the box, which was holding all the sides. They all broke. The mirrors broke. Both mirrors broke. And so this is all done to Elton John's funeral for a friend, by the way. Yeah, right. So now it's time for the Super X levitation. Nothing can go wrong with that. You know, you go, you pull the supports away, you hypnotize a girl, put her on a table, pull away the supports, then you go around the other side of the table, you cover the metal bar with your leg, and you lift the sheet up, and they see your legs. Well, the sheet was up the whole time I was walking around. So they saw the metal bar holding her up. The whole time I'm pulling the supports out, they saw the metal bar. Every second they saw the metal bar. So that actually fooled a few people because why would I leave that? It couldn't be the metal bar. Yeah, it's too obvious. So then I was closing with the guillotine, and the guillotine, the blade drops. It's supposed to penetrate through her neck, blackout. Well, they black out as soon as the blade starts to move. They black out, and that's the end. You never see it go through her neck. So it was so bad. The next day in school, nobody made fun of me. They just ignored it. They just didn't want to say anything to me.
They didn't say anything.
No, there was everybody, my mom and my dad, everyone just was quiet about it. You know, it was humiliating. It's the last time I did a serious magic show.
Is that where the comedy came in? Was you were just like,
oh yeah, people were laughing, and then from that point on, I did switch to comedy. Basically, I'm doing the same show, aren't I?
It's beautiful, man. So there you have it. Like 20 different magicians, all workers, doing their thing and being honest about the ups and downs. I hope you guys enjoyed that as much as I did. I'm going to be walking around the rest of the convention and just getting as many of these as I can. And who knows, we might even put out another episode of them. So thank you guys for tuning in. And thank you to everyone who's supporting us on Patreon. If you want to get more behind the scenes content, if you want to just help support, make this show possible, you can go to abouttobreakpodcast.com and click on Become a Producer. And for just $1 or more a month, you can call yourself a producer of this show. You can help us make the thing possible. Let's see, where am I going next? We're finishing Magic Live. I'm going to go to Texas and North Carolina and Virginia. And then at the end of the month, I will be in Nashville, Tennessee for a week performing at House of Cards. So if you're anywhere near Nashville, come out, say hey. I would love to see you guys. But thanks for tuning in. Enjoy the rest of your week, and we will see you guys real soon.